already seeing that, though, in the polls out since Saturday, a week ago, since the vote. I mean, we're already seeing that reverberate in the polls. I made the point, 40% of the no vote was in the Labor heartland seats. And this is a PM, let's not forget, yes, he's had an extraordinary honeymoon against the coalition in the early months, but this is a Prime Minister that only 3 out of 10 Australians voted for. So, he might seem more formidable than his electoral results at last year's election actually show. And, of course, there's no Scott Morrison this time.
Well, there is a leadership issue here because Anthony Albanese made The Voice a test of his own leadership. He's done that for the past 12 to 18 months, and it hasn't been successful. So the issue now will be, what is the quality of his leadership when it comes to the economy, inflation, cost of living, the energy transition, power prices, excessive regulation, getting young people into the housing market, the industrial relations system. These are the issues that matter. And the question now will be whether Anthony Albanese can display the leadership required of a Prime Minister on this range of issues, and they are very challenging structural issues.
Just on that point, though, I mean, this is the first time in a long time we've had a truly left Labor Prime Minister, and that the organ of the caucus is more to the left than the right. We know that the party out of that August conference is more to the left than the right. So, things like energy, he has a challenge bringing energy back to sort of the Labor right or centre ground. He won't. Difficult to see that happening, because even though Bowen's nominally from the right, the policy's absolutely hard left. He's got issues with immigration. He's got obviously issues with Indigenous politics coming out of this voice. He's got issues on cost of living and his own commitments made, very clear commitments at the last election. So how does he reset, given he's a man of the left, the parties of the left, the caucuses of the left? How does he reset somewhere towards even the Labor right to win back those people who walked away from him in the Voice vote?
Well, it won't be easy, and in this sense, it goes to the question of delivery. Remember, Anthony Albanese became Prime Minister pledging to increase living standards, pledging to cut power prices, pledging to deliver on real wages growth. Now, at the end of his first term, when he goes to the next election, he's got to have some progress made on these issues. Now, you've identified the fact that to a certain extent this is a government of the left, and I think that's true. But what we're going to see in the next year or so is the real character of this government. What does this government really believe? What are going to be the real substance of its policies, and are they going to work? And the point I would make about this, Peter, is all these challenges are very substantial. We're talking here about fundamental structural problems. This is not easy.
Yeah.
You can't solve these problems quickly. You can't solve these problems overnight. So I must say that I do think he's going to find this particularly difficult, but he's got to be able to go to the next election with some runs on the board here.
All right, well, let's go to his current visit to Washington, quickly followed, of course, by the visit to China. And we know that, the Washington security class has woken up to the China risk. We know that they were very upset, let's say, not so long ago about the Port of Darwin issue. We saw it dropped out and buried on Friday night. The government now is going to do nothing about the lease of the Port of Darwin, which occurred during the Turnbull government era. He's got talks there in the US with President Biden about AUKUS. We know that a lot of Republicans are very nervous about AUKUS. We saw some announcements today. They're not, I think, very meaningful in a sense about Microsoft and cyber issues. But he has a strategic two-step over the next fortnight in the United States, saying the things the United States, our alliance partners, want to hear. At the same time, he's going to China. There's been some big concessions made to China. He's had some wins too. But it feels like China is letting go of Chongli and changing, issues with wine tariffs, etc., as a bit of a play. And he's falling for it.
Well, at the moment, China's the country making the concessions. Australia hasn't made concessions. I think that's a pretty important point. But in relation to his talks in the United States, yes, the Microsoft announcement is very important. The big game in America is AUKUS. There's no doubt at all about that. And getting the legislation through the Congress, and of course the Congress is a real mess at the moment. So essentially it's important that we see the President and the Prime Minister coming together, and I'm certain we'll see this in terms of a renewed commitment to the AUKUS agreement. I think the fact that the Prime Minister is in Washington before he goes to China is a good thing, because they'll clearly be talking about China, and clearly we can see that President Biden has taken a tough stand towards China. He wants a strong balance of power in the Asia-Pacific. That accords with Anthony Albanese's position. But at the end of the day, the Americans have got to put their money on the table and show that they can deliver on AUKUS. And so in that sense, the pressure at the moment is on the United States.
All right, we'll see how that all plays out. Paul Kelly, thank you as always.